One Piece. This is One Piece chapter 1018, Jinbei versus Who's Who. This was last week's chapter. There is no One Piece this week, unfortunately, but luckily we get to talk about it regardless. So let's get into it. This is Jinbei versus Who's Who. I got excited at the title itself because immediately I was like, 1-on-1 fight. Let's go.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So
more of an exchange of information. But,
I mean,
yeah, it was a fight.
I mean, they threw down. They went in.
They threw down, yeah.
Yeah. We start off with the numbers, the headliners and gifters of Kaido's crew have turned coat. Not all of them. Some of them, the ones that were that ate some of Otama's Millet dumplings that turned them against. That she can control animal people that way. It doesn't work on, I guess, like full human beings, but animals and zone fruit users to a degree, even if their smile are affected. And yeah, it's a pretty powerful ability. It's extremely useful to be able to turn coat your enemies. So
if they're mostly animals.
Yeah, only if they're mostly animals. Which is convenient because Kaido's mostly animals at this point. Zeus is also like, can I be your servant too, Nami? And Nami's like, what do you say to sidekick? And that's actually kind of better than servant. That's
good.
That's an elevated position. And yeah, Zeus is hype. He's out here lightning bolting people. We get another scene with the CP0 who are just nonchalantly watching this. They basically break down the numbers that because of all the casualties and all the turncoats, it is now 16,000 versus 9,000. I believe the Straw Hats are the 9,000 side, and Kaido's crew is obviously 16,000. But apparently the CP0 don't even give a shit about this battle. They're not really here for that. They're actually here to confirm the death of one particular person, and it is Who's Who, actually. They're here to make sure he dies here.
So sly.
Yeah. But and they're not even worried because like Who's Who can damage the government in any way. It's just a bad look that he's alive and out there, and that's why they're coming out to kill him.
So they put a buster call on a person.
Yeah, on one human being.
Yeah, so that's a racing.
Yeah,
because
he knows.
Yeah,
he knows shit.
He knows stuff. Bad look.
Speaking of the devil, we cut back to that battle. It's Who's Who and Jinbei going at it. Jinbei is basically like, so you're saying you hold a grudge against Luffy? Is like, well, technically my grudge is against the man who stole the gum fruit. Red-haired Shanks that we already knew.
Yeah, well, technically.
Well, technically. But you know what? Luffy inherited both the gum fruit and the Straw Hat from him, so in theory, yes, I'm also mad at Luffy. Like, if I had to choose between the two, it would probably be Shanks, but Luffy's here right now. So,
yeah. Makes sense. I think that was actually very reasonable.
Yeah. He also drops a sly comment against Jinbei. He's like, I'm surprised how quickly you can move on land, Jinbei, considering you're a fish man. And
wow, so he's lame and he's prejudiced.
Yeah.
Well, I guess racist in this situation.
Yeah, Jinbei's literally like, don't you know casual racism against fishmen is out of style these days? Man, this chapter is great because it's basically Jinbei beats the brakes off a racist, and it's pretty cool. I'm not mad at it.
Yeah.
They continue to fight, and at a certain point, he starts to ask this question. He's like, I've always wanted to ask this to you. I've heard about a story from jail while I was undergoing terrible torments. He laughed and told me to pray. And apparently he was told about this figure that slaves would pray to in the long distance past, the sun god known as Nika. And he was just like, did he really exist? And Jinbei's like, why are you asking me? And he's like, well, because you guys led the Sun Pirates and you had former slaves in your crew. And what is Fishman history but the history of slavery?
Holy shit.
Yeah. And Jinbei got that upset Jinbei. He did not enjoy that. So, you know, Who's Who unleashes a barrage of attacks on Jinbei, and Jinbei fully armament hockeys up as he kind of just eats all of them, and Who's Who just keeps asking, like pressing the issue is just, and he reveals that the prison guard who told him the story of Nika disappeared, and which led him to believe that even knowing about this figure is illegal to, like, or you could get disappeared for that shit. The government doesn't really look highly of people knowing about this guy. At some point after he continues to poke and prod, his finger just snaps and on the pure armament hockey of Jinbei, and Jinbei grabs him with he like gives him a shark grip, crushes his wrists kinda, and he says, "I have nothing to say to the likes of you." And Who's Who tries to give him another like fang pistol, which are really strong. They eat through the ground and go through the floors, as we see throughout this chapter. Jinbei just eats it to the face. It doesn't really even do anything to him. He just takes it, and he loads up his Fishman Karate secret art. Yeah. Who's Who tries to get away, but Jinbei caught him on his tail. He has him like stomped on his tail and prevented him from jumping away. And then he does his like 1 pound brick fist. And he's like, if you're going to run your mouth about history, unleashes his demon brick fist. And he says, be ready to wait for what you're stepping into first. As he,
man.
And Who's Who falls back. And I don't think he's defeated at this point, but he took a pretty gnarly hit there. And that's where the chapter ends. 2-page spread of Jinbei unleashing this attack and telling him to shut the fuck up, dude. I really like this chapter. I think like there's a lot. Obviously, the sun god character is very, very prominent. I feel like it's gonna be of major importance down the line. A lot of people are theorizing that he's Joy Boy himself. That like
the sun god.
Yeah,
dude.
Other people are saying that he knew Joy Boy in the same way that like Nolan knew Calgara. I think that's the prevailing theory, is that they're like an inversion of those two characters from Skypiea. You know, like the
Nolan the liar, the big dude,
and Calgara from Jaya. That they're inversions of each other in that way. I feel, obviously, 1,018 chapters in, Oda's still dropping just fresh plot points, I guess, to follow down the line.
It was. I was like, wow, this is something brand new. And it did immediately make me think about Joy Boy as well. Mm-hmm. But it also made me think, like, maybe this guy's right. Maybe it did have something to do with, like, the fisherman. And maybe it was a fisherman that was on the crew. I don't know if Joy Boy was a pirate. I'm going to assume he was.
Yeah.
Or something. At least he was a guy at sea, and guys at sea need a crew.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a situation like that. But if you don't mind, could you refresh me, and I guess anybody else listening, on the Skypiea lore with Nolan and that and what I forgot what you called it.
Yeah. Calgara. I think it's
Calgara. Yeah.
No, yeah, that was the flashback story of Skypiea, in which we learned the story of an explorer known as Noland. He discovered Jaya, which was known to be a city of gold. There was just like so much gold there. The indigenous peoples were kind of like backwards in their ways of medicine and all that stuff, and they would just have these kind of like rituals of sacrifice and whatnot in order to ward off these plagues that they've been having. Obviously, it wasn't working, but Nolan, being a doctor at the time, healed like pretty much the whole village. It took him a while. Like, there was a lot of like mistrust between Nolan and Calgara, but after Nolan basically, he destroyed a holy land, because that was where their disease was coming from, is these rotted trees that were spreading these like pathogens in the air.
Oh.
So they had like a really big beef about that, but after Calgara actually realized that the trees is what they were killing, that was killing them, they kind of just they made up, and they became really good friends. and Nolan left, promising to return to visit them again, but that's when they were shot up into Skypiea, and they never saw each other.
From the guys.
Right. So I guess like that's because if you look at the outline of Nika, he seems to be kind of like a more from way back in the day, like ancient times primitive wear, and I think that's kind of like maybe the parallel they're making. That's what I've heard some theories about that. I don't know. I think it's interesting because, and it does relate to Jinbei because the Sun Pirates were, are obviously connected to the sun god. You could make that assumption.
Sure.
Fisher Tiger, like made the Sun Pirates. He was a former slave. And he kind of did the same thing Nika did. He rescued a bunch of slaves. He was a real life, I guess, incarnation of this legend known as Nika. And I don't know if the legend comes from him or he kind of took that legend to heart and crafted his pirate crew after that model. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of lore here. We're getting a lot of endgame type threads popping up, and Nika's, I think, obviously one of them. Maybe he is one of the natives from that island that was destroyed long ago in the Void Century. I'm sure that one of that group of people, that race of people, is going to be prominent at one point or another. And maybe this man is the sun god, is one of the representatives of that island. I keep saying it's Kaido, it's Joy Boy, who knows? But that's one of them.
So one last thing, on my mind, it could just be the way he drew it, but it almost seems as if he used Emperor's Haki.
Who did? When? The lightning
Jinbei
bolts?
in his attack.
Yeah, by the lightning bolts?
Yeah, so there's two reasons why. Mm-hmm. At first, the first thing I noticed was the lightning bolts, which I feel like you could write off. Like, sometimes that happens, and it's not so mighty and huge. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
like how when Kaido was fighting the Luffy or whatever. However, he does stop his fist.
Yeah.
Before hitting him, and I see I don't know if that's people yelling "stop" in the background, but it looks like, I don't know.
No, it's his fist stopping for sure.
Okay.
And yes, it's very Ryusei Haki.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, he could very well have Emperor's Haki. Emperor's Haki isn't necessarily constricted to captains, and Jinbei was a captain at some point.
He certainly was. I mean, he's very wise and regal anyway. You know what I mean? Emperor's Haki is a weird thing. It's not. It's. I don't know. I wonder if they'll ever explain how people acquire it. But you can't.
Well, in theory, everyone has Haki to a degree. Like every single person, but only some people have more of an affinity towards it. Some people have an affinity towards Emperor's Haki. Specifically, I think Emperor's Haki itself is more rare than armament or observation. I think anybody could game those two, but Emperor's Haki is a little more exclusive. And there's obviously a mystery behind what Haki is, and that's probably also going to be a thing down the line. But yeah, I think it makes sense that Jinbei would have it, and it's not like he's like same level as Luffy-esque or Kaido, where he's destroying things maybe to that same degree. Maybe there's like also varying degrees of the mastery of Emperor's Haki. But yeah. In any case, I love this chapter.
Yeah.
This
was really cool.
Newest member of the crew gets his first one-on-one fight first. I appreciate that. This probably isn't going to be the end. I think this is just like a cool moment, middle of the road. I don't know how many chapters they'll really focus on Straw Hat's individuals battle. Maybe they'll get 2 at a time, which I don't mind at all. But I'm very excited for what comes next. It was sad to have it off today, because I wanted to see what happens next. But we'll be back next week with One Piece. Very excited.